On a summer road trip through Alaska, a family unwittingly follows a pair of hand-carved signs to a quiet, primitive campground deep in Denali National Park. No other campers, no cell service, just a forgotten loop of fire pits and numbered posts. They spend the night in Site 6, where their daughter says a boy warned her to watch out for bears. But later, a ranger tells them the campground they stayed in was shut down decades ago. Not for bears, for a family that disappeared without a trace. This is Odd National Park, where the natural meets the supernatural. Let us know you want to hear more chilling outdoor stories like the one in this episode. Follow Odd National Park and visit the support page on our website so we can keep exploring the weird side of the wild. Thank you. Tonight's story comes from Marissa, a listener whose family took a summer road trip through Alaska, where they were drawn to a campground that didn't exist. They weren't seeking anything strange, just open roads, quiet trails, and a place to unplug. But deep inside Denali National Park, they followed a road that wasn't on any brochure, and they would soon learn that they stayed in a site with a baffling history. Denali is massive, over 6 million acres of mountains, rivers, and silence. Some places are so remote they've only been mapped from the air. Others haven't been mapped at all. In a landscape that wild, it's easy for things to get lost. Roads, trails, people. But sometimes it's not just what's lost that matters. It's what comes back. Here's Marissa's story. Hi, James. My sister told me about your show, and after listening to a few episodes, I felt like I should share something that happened to my family on a road trip through Alaska a couple of summers ago. Thinking about what happened still freaks me out because of the impact it had on our youngest child. We had rented an RV and were driving through Denali National Park, heading toward our next reserved site, when we saw a wooden sign along the road. Riley Springs Campground, 2 miles. It looked old and weathered, but had the same brown with yellow lettering style as other national park signs. About a mile later, we saw another one. Primitive camping only, limited services. We hadn't planned to stop there, but we were ahead of schedule, the kids were restless, and a little adventure off the beaten path sounded kind of perfect. We followed a gravel road through heavy pine and alder until it opened into a wide forested loop. 10 sites with numbered posts, a few fire rings, and a faded ranger info board at the entrance. No signs of other campers or vehicles. We figured it was just a lesser-known primitive campground, and we were excited to have the whole place to ourselves. We chose Site 6, near a dry creek bed with good tree cover. It was peaceful, almost too peaceful. No breeze or animal noises, just a strangely intense stillness and quiet. That evening, while we were making dinner, our 9-year-old daughter, Ivy, came up to us with a wide-eyed look. She told us she saw a boy walking through the campground. I asked if she waved. Ivy shook her head and said, "He told me to watch out for bears," and went into the trees. We looked but didn't see anyone. We assumed the boy was with a family that stumbled onto the campground like we did, but they left to find a different place to camp. The next morning, everything felt a little off. The air was colder, the light seemed to come through the trees at a strange angle, like the sun wasn't quite where it should be. I walked over to the ranger board at the front of the loop. The campground map posted there was sun-bleached, and tacked just beneath it, faded and water-stained, was a typed notice on old Park Service letterhead. Incident report. Riley Springs Campground, August 1986. Campground closed until further notice. How did we not see this yesterday? My husband thought it was weird but shrugged it off. He's a camper. He's used to quirky old signage, as he put it. But I couldn't shake the feeling. There was no trash, no maintenance tags, no sign this place had been visited by anyone, rangers or otherwise, for years. We packed up and headed out. The access road to the highway felt longer than it had the day before. We passed a downed tree we didn't remember seeing, and the kids said the campground looked different, though they couldn't explain how. That afternoon, when we arrived at our reserved site, I mentioned we camped at Riley Springs to the check-in ranger, just making small talk. He paused, then said, "That's not possible. That campground's been closed since the late 80s. Looking confused, I asked why. He hesitated, then said, "Whole family went missing. No signs of struggle. Car parked with keys left inside. The tents were still zipped with sleeping bags set up. Everything looked normal, except they just vanished." Park Service never reopened the campground. They blocked off the access road, and it's been overgrown for decades. Back at the RV, I scrolled through pictures we'd taken at Site 6 that morning. Most were typical: trees, breakfast, my husband making coffee. But one stopped me cold. It showed the four of us standing by the picnic table. Just over Ivy's shoulder, you could see what looked like a boy, barely visible, standing between two trees. It was slightly blurred, not enough to write it off, but just enough to leave me unsure whether I was seeing what I was seeing. And then I couldn't stop thinking about the encounter Ivy had. I didn't say anything to Ivy about the photo, but a few nights after we got home, she brought up the boy again out of nowhere. She asked if I thought he was real. I told her I wasn't sure. She got quiet, then said, "It felt like he was stuck there, like he couldn't leave." Then she looked at me and added, "I don't think he was warning me about bears. I think he was trying to warn us before it happened again." That's what stays with me. Not the photo, not even the ranger's story. Just that moment, my daughter standing in a forgotten campground, hearing a calm, quiet voice that didn't belong. Sometimes I wonder if we were drawn into a place that had been sealed off, that showed itself long enough to see who might stay. So if any of your listeners finds Riley Springs, don't stay in Site 6. We were lucky we didn't. Some places don't disappear. They just wait. Closed gates, overgrown roads, faded names. It's easy to believe they're gone for good, but sometimes they return long enough to be remembered, or to repeat something that never quite ended. Marissa's family spent one quiet night in a place that shouldn't have been there, and her daughter saw someone who may have been waiting for years to be seen. Not everything in Riley Springs was visible, but something was there. Maybe still is. If you ever find yourself at a campground that isn't in the brochure, where the air feels just a little too still and the signs look older than they should, trust your gut and take Marissa's advice. Please send in your paranormal stories at oddnationalpark.com to be featured on a future episode. And be sure to visit the support page on our website so we can keep the campfire burning. Thanks as always for tuning in. I'm James, and this has been Odd National Park.